There's currently a proposal that could change Terra Luna Classic forever. In theory, this proposal could fund the Oracle pool, fund the community pool, and have burns going on. This has a lot of potential behind it. Let's talk about what this proposal is. The Terra Classic Community DEX is what this proposal is about. Now, if you guys have not seen already, we interviewed the maker of this proposal, Faffy, or in this case, his username is Johnny here, on our podcast channel, myself and Crypto King. You guys can check out that video. It's going to be linked right up here. But in this proposal, essentially, there's a couple different elements here that are talked about, and we're just going to give you guys a high-level summary right now, and I'm going to explain why this is so important. So essentially, the idea here is to generate revenue, refill the Oracle pools, and burn Terra Luna Classic, develop a strategy to make the platform self-sustainable, innovate to reestablish Terra Classic as a top DeFi protocol. So essentially, what this is trying to do is let's set up a DEX, essentially. The idea here is to set up a DEX that uses Uniswap v3 to use concentrated liquidity. Now, that's a technical thing. We spent about 45 minutes in that podcast recording going over what all this means, the risks of it, how this actually works in practical case. And so you guys definitely should check that out if you want to learn more about that. But essentially, just think of it like you're providing liquidity, except for within a specified price range. So let's say between 10 cents and 20 cents as an example. You don't have to be providing liquidity throughout all the different prices. And so from my understanding, this essentially potentially amplifies your rewards and amplifies your risks. Now, this DEX would be using the Oracle pool money to try and fund it. That way we can go ahead and have liquidity provided, and that would be the sole liquidity provider. So in a normal DEX scenario, you or me or anybody can go in there and provide liquidity, then people can buy and sell cryptocurrencies. In this scenario, what they want to do instead is use the Oracle pool to fund these different liquidity pools, and then the Oracle pool becomes the sole liquidity provider. So whatever that liquidity pool fee is, let's say 1% swap fee, then the Oracle pool would receive that 1% swap fee, or we as a community essentially at the protocol level would receive that 1%, and then we can do what we want with it. We could use it to refund the Oracle pool, we could use it to spend into the community pool, or we could just straight up burn it. We have a lot of flexibility, but that 1% of revenue would go entirely to us. There are a few other technical elements about this proposal, such as flash loans and some interesting mechanisms, but that's more advanced. We're just going to talk here about the basics of this proposal. Now, the cost of this proposal is something I want to get into now. The liquidity core module is going to cost about $50,000. Flash swaps, that's something, again, kind of advanced, not that important right now. It's $30,000. Terra indices, $20,000. And then some other cost here for a total of $125,000 to build out this platform. Now, something I do actually really like here is you have a performance index bonus. So essentially, only if the total revenue generated from the community DEX, transaction fees plus profit from internal arbitrage is greater than 1.6 billion Terra Luna Classic before the 1st of June 2023. So they're setting out kind of these standards here of when this would apply. Then they would ask for an additional $125,000 as a bonus, essentially, for them creating something that provided value that was actually utilized and generated revenue back into the community pool, which that would basically exceed or double the amount that they're getting paid. So the initial amount that they're getting paid plus this bonus would then cover themselves by the. That's going to be done by a team of 3 professionals, and this is possible because Uniswap v3 is actually open source, and so they could go ahead and utilize that base code, make changes, and then implement it here without an extreme amount of work rebuilding a DEX from the ground up. Now, this current proposal is only for step 1, the liquidity core module, so essentially the basic elements that come with the DEX. Now, currently, this proposal is not being looked on too favorably by a lot of people. We have a lot of no votes and no with veto votes from validators, and a lot of the concerns tend to be, well, a couple different points. The first one being is that it's a team of 3 people that are not listed. Right now, they're asking for a significant amount of money, and there's no information given as to who those people actually are. And I have talked to Faffy. He showed his face on the video when we were doing the call, but still, it's like there's not a KYC process. They're not big known community members that are already super trusted by a lot of people within the community. And so there's some concerns there that they could potentially run off with the money. Now, I don't know how valid those concerns are, but that is a concern that a lot of people have. The next major concern is the fact that to actually fund this DEX, they're going to be borrowing from the Oracle pool. Now, this paragraph right here talks about how they're going to be borrowing some of the coins in the Oracle pool. They'll stay in the Oracle pool, but they're going to essentially borrow against that. And that's potentially a risk here that people are maybe seeing that, hey, we're actually going to be using this Oracle pool to lend out money. Some of this critical money that we need, we're going to lend it out. And then hopefully that money can make more money is the idea here. But if things do go bad, there is a risk associated with this too. Now, the thing that people are really excited about is that if this does manage to bring a lot of of volume back into the chain, back into the ecosystem, we could see some massive potential here. For example, if we could see millions of dollars of volume being traded actively every single day on this DEX, if they implemented a 1% fee, they could be collecting tens of thousands of dollars of value every single day that then would be going towards the Oracle pool, the community pool, the burns, whatever it is that we want to spend it on. The problem with that assumption is that people will need to want to trade on the blockchain on this DEX. If we had a 1% fee, that would not be very competitive to something like Binance, for example, that has a 0.1% fee. Now, we might get the people who are occasionally buying and selling, the long-term investors, because 1% for a long-term investor is not that big of a deal, but a lot of volume actually comes from these day traders who are actively moving in and out of positions. And if you lose 1% on each side of that, 2% total as a fee, that's not a viable solution for day traders because they're trying to make profit off of the swings that happen within the day. They're looking at 0.5% movements. They pay a 0.1% fee on Binance, and so they can net the 0.4%. I personally don't believe that this would really be viable for day traders, and you'd have to rely solely on people who want to buy and hold. And then the question becomes, are there millions of dollars of volume of people that want to buy and hold that will do that through the actual on-chain transactions? So at the end of the day, there's a lot of risk and uncertainty within this proposal. And so while I think that it has a lot of great potential, I personally am probably going to have to say no in its current form. I do think that overall as a community, and this is nothing against necessarily Faffy here, but I think us as a community need to create a standard for people who make proposals. We need to say, if you want to do a community spend proposal, here are the outline things that we want to see. Here's the KYC process we want you to go through. Here's all these different criteria to create a community spend proposal before we as a community will approve it. And that will require the validators to get on board. It'll require different community members to be on board with that idea. But I think that's going to be a really valuable thing for the future. So as the proposal stands right now, plus my desire to have that functionality of a standard, I'm going to have to say no on this proposal right now. I think there's a couple iterations that could be made to make this proposal better. And we as a community need to come up with a standard before we start giving out too much money. If you want to learn how you could stake your Terra Luna Classic so you could participate in governance just like this, check out this video right up here.